And so, what we're going to speak to today is how astrology can be approached as a modality for healing. Every moment and experience of our life is an opportunity for us to learn and to grow. There are no wrong experiences, therefore, for our own soul's evolution. And we can use astrology to understand nature. What is the nature of ourself, our life, not just what we are experiencing in life, but why we are experiencing what we do in life. And so this is an opportunity for us to learn astrology and use the understanding of nature in order to harmonize our life and our nature. Astrology is also like a mirror that can reflect back new perspectives, new understandings of who we are. And so in this talk, we will explore some of the most identifiable core personal components of an astrology chart. Even if you are new to astrology, you will be able to put the methods mentioned here to practice at once and see the results immediately. And even if you are a seasoned astrologer, this distillation of evolutionary astrology principles as related to the moon will help reinforce your own understanding, your own practice and approach to the moon and the moon's nodes. So when we're first getting into astrology, it's very common that we jump to that sun, moon, rising, what's your sun, what's your moon, what's your rising sign? And I think this is a wonderful way to approach astrology, as these three parts of our chart are some of the most easily recognizable and identifiable parts of ourself. But what we're going to explore today is actually going to allow us to see some of the deepest themes of any individual's life. And not only that, when we look to the moon's nodes, this is really going to cut to the bottom of the barrel of some of the most easily recognizable and easily definable aspects of a person's chart. And so if you have been doing the sun, moon, rising approach, you may be able to take some of these tools and approaches we will mention in this lecture and be able to read a person's chart and understand what are some of those archetypes, those symbols and themes that are very defined and noticeable in a person's life. Now, let me see if I can get organized because I've got some images to share here. First, let's introduce what we're going to be speaking to today, which is the moon and the moon's nodes, is all about the structure of self-identity. And so what is the structure of self-identity? Well, this is known as ego. And there are different definitions for what an ego means. So we need to begin, first of all, by elaborating. The way that we will define and approach ego in this presentation is not exactly the same as some of those common Buddhist or New Age teachings, namely that the ego is that which seeks to get in our own way or ruin our life. The ego that we are going to talk about today has a much higher meaning and a much more important function. Though the ego has the potential to get in the way and to ruin our life, that is not necessarily the case. That is, of course, going to be much more common, however, if we do not understand what is the specific nature and what is the specific function of the ego. And so that's some of what we can talk about today. Now I'm going to pull up an image here. So let's see how the screen share is working. All right. Let me make sure I can still Well, I'll just have to check back to look at questions or comments. So what is the ego? What is the moon? The moon is the most personally relatable part of our chart. Again, our ego is what's actually experiencing life. So we need to define ego as being our personal identification with locally experienced phenomenon. The moon is what we're familiar with. Yes, we know that the moon oftentimes reflects sometimes the past, the family, the mother, the upbringing. Not necessarily, but sometimes we see that correlation because the moon reflects our comfort zone, our personal identification, and has formed from past familiar experience. What has been known has been identified with. And this is what forms our structure of identity, of ego. And so we're not throwing the ego away. That's something that we're going to be very much understanding, is that the ego is actually more like a vehicle. It is something that we're using. And the more that we try to throw away or discard or suppress that ego, that can even have negative repercussions where that ego ends up becoming distorted, louder, more ferocious. When we try to suppress or run away from our own nature, this tends to be what happens. And we'll particularly be looking at this dynamic of suppression when we talk about Pluto and shadow work tomorrow. Now let me stop my screen share so I can actually see what's going on here. We're going to look at the plane of the ecliptic, okay? Before we get into more of the specifics, let's talk about, or I should say, let's get some of the technical out of the way so we're kind of all on the same page in terms of what are these actual indicators in the chart that we are looking at. And so the plane of the ecliptic, very, very, very important in astrology, okay? Let me pull up an old map here, okay? This is an old, why are you doing this? Old unfinished map. Okay, we can see the Americas haven't all been discovered, but the reason I'm pulling up this old map is the old maps typically showed this plane of the ecliptic here. And from the perspective of our Earth, this is the movement of the sun's incoming rays due to the wobble, the spin on the Earth's axis. And due to this wobble and the movement of the sun's incoming rays from the perspective of the Earth, we have our seasons. When the sun's incoming rays is aligned with the Tropic of Cancer, we have summertime here in the northern hemisphere. Then we have our fall equinox when the sun's incoming rays aligns with the equators. And we have our winter solstice when the sun's incoming rays is aligned with the Tropic of Capricorn down here. Okay, now let's take a look at the ecliptic through the formation of a solar system. And this comes from the Science Institute of California. And what we're looking at here is a simulation of a solar system being born. At least that's what this video is supposed to be, but it looks like this is not. Oh, here we go. I don't know why it's okay, here we have our forming solar system. And what this is that we're viewing is the protoplanetary disk. During the formation of a star, we see this plane where there's a tremendous energy. And this plane actually remains with the star throughout the formation of the solar system. Now I'm going to skip ahead a little bit here. And what we're seeing is this simulation is now speeding up time. And all of that matter, those clouds, are clumping together and forming planets. And now those planets are rotating on axis, and those axis, they wobble like a spin on a top. And here we see all this planetary debris is now starting to shoot out and leave the solar system. This takes place over many millions of years. And throughout this process, eventually those planetary compounds do form into defined orbits, the way that we see in our current solar system. Right? The orbits of Venus and Jupiter and Saturn are very defined. And because of that, we can use astrology as a time tracking technique. We can use astrology as a predictive tool because of how determined these planets are on this specific axis. The reason I'm showing this simulation is to emphasize just how powerful that plane of the ecliptic is. Because in fact, every single solar system that we have discovered has that plane where there's planets rotating around the sun on a singular axis. Now, taking a look at our own solar system here, okay? The invariable plane, we're going to say that's the hypothetical 0 degrees. And what we see is that these planets actually pass above and below the invariable plane and the plane of the ecliptic. Okay, so we're seeing the plane of the ecliptic, which is again related to the tilt on Earth's axis, 1.6 degrees. This is the movement of the Earth going above and beneath that plane of the ecliptic, but due to our perspective on Earth, it looks as though it is the sun moving. Okay. The reason why I'm beginning by emphasizing this plane of the ecliptic is every time a planet passes this plane, this is what is called nodes. And it's not just the moon. It is actually every single planet that forms planetary nodes. Nodes in general, whether it be the moons or planetary nodes, always indicate evolutionary dynamics. As planets conjoin this plane, they create a great reverberation and humming of the evolutionary divine dance, what I refer to as the Lila Rasa. This is the tick-tock between the past and the future, through which the spiral of time constantly reverberates. Okay, so we saw that formation of a solar system and how these planets are spinning, 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 spinning. And that is the dance of time. That is the seasonal progression. But as they're spinning, they're also conjoining and moving above and beneath that plane. And this is what creates that tick-tock between the past and the future. Jennifer, I think my audio is still going. Hopefully everyone can still hear me. So every solar system, again, has this orientation around a central star. And again, that proplanetary disk that is originally one and the same with the star eventually becomes that magical invisible plane of the ecliptic. When we're talking about a solar system, it really is all about the soul, the star, the sun. The planets, the rotation of the planets are interconnected to the sun. And when we study astrology, this is what we're studying. We're studying cycles. We're studying movements, but also through the observation of these movements, we recognize the interconnection of nature. So, why the moon's nodes? Why are we going to focus on the moon's nodes today? Because the moon is the most personal, identifiable part of the chart. The moon's nodes is going to reveal how our own personal identity is evolving through time. And the reason that moon's nodal polarity is so critically important in any person's birth chart is because this is actually no accident. We are created to evolve through the vehicle of the ego. Now, I forgot to include a graphic, so use your imagination. We're looking at the wheel of the zodiac, and we see Cancer, ruled by the moon, in trine to Scorpio, ruled by Pluto, and finally Pisces, ruled by Neptune. This grand water trine is known as the trine of spirit. The element of water reflects our own spiritual nature. There is an important relationship here between the moon, which is our actual feeling-based experience. It is our actual living life and experiencing life, and then having a reflection and experience. This is what I'm feeling. This is what I'm experiencing. With that trine to Pluto, it is our own soul, Pluto, the catalyst of evolution, which creates the ego. The ego is not an illusion to be discarded or ignored. The ego is a part of the soul. And the ego actually reflects the structure of the soul and that soul's evolutionary journey. Many, many lifetimes of past experience. What we've learned and gathered from those past experiences has formed this egoic identity that the soul creates in order to explore its own nature, whatever evolutionary themes are desired to continue to learn and grow. And then that final leg of the trine, Neptune and Pisces, is where this becomes a spiritual journey. It is our own soul's evolution and our personal experience, our personal emotional feedback, the moon, which is leading us into the understanding of be-all, end-all nature, that which we are connected to. And so this experience of separation, this experience of our own identity, which is familiar to us, is not an illusion. It is actually a reflection of our soul. That does not mean that we are limited to our ego, or that we are limited to our own patterns of self-identification. But what it means is that those self-identifying patterns are not irrelevant. They're actually very relevant. They're very personal, and they go straight to home in terms of what are our soul's deepest evolutionary desires. Now, what we'll talk about in my lecture tomorrow on Pluto is really going to get into the nature of the unconscious. And our unconscious desires, our unconscious fears generate a lot of our experience as well as egoic structures as well. We may not know why we have particular attractions or repulsions or themes in our life. But regardless, the moon's nodes reveal some of these most critical underlying themes in our life in terms of how we are learning and growing. I oftentimes find that across the board, clients' questions, struggles, complexes, they oftentimes go into the themes of the moon's nodes. And again, this is the most personally relatable and identifiable parts of our chart that reflects back what we are learning, and not only that, why we are learning what we do. Okay, so I realize I'm jumping around a little bit at the beginning, and that's just simply because I want to get the technical understood. That way we can really start to talk about the techniques of integrating this into a chart reading. So let's take a look at the moon's nodes really quickly. How the moon's nodes are formed, okay? So here we see the plane of the ecliptic, which is the apparent motion of the sun's relationship to the earth. Now we bring in the moon's rotation around the earth. And what we will notice is that that moon moves above the plane of the ecliptic and then down below the plane of the ecliptic. Now, I realize in outer space there is really no such thing as direction. And so we have made the magnetic north and magnetic south of the Earth to have a sense of direction. When the moon moves above the ecliptic, the point where the moon's orbit conjoins the plane of the ecliptic is the moon's north node. The point where the moon's orbit conjoins the ecliptic moving south is the moon's south node. And again, it is not just the moon, but every planetary body forms these points of conjoining the ecliptic, which reveals some of the most critical underlying evolutionary dynamics. This is true both in the individual soul when we look at a natal birth chart, and true in the collective transits when we look at the transiting planetary nodes, or when we look at the transiting moon's nodes. As you can see while we're looking at this graphic, the points where the moon is most far away from the ecliptic is where the moon squares the nodes. And that's going to be an important dynamic that we will take a glimpse at today. Nodal squares is when planets are most distant from the moon's nodes. And that's going to reveal an important understanding and symbol of what nodal squares means when we look at this dynamic later on. There's the greatest distance from the plane of the ecliptic. All right. When we're looking at the moon's nodes, they are always opposite one another. This reveals the natural tension between the past and the future. It is through the natural tension that our soul is evolving. So not only is our ego not a problem, the tension, the challenges that our ego experiences throughout life is also not a problem, not an accident, not a sign of failure, but a part of our soul's evolution. This is very important because when we really see the symbols and themes of a birth chart, we learn how to acknowledge this is my life, this is my journey. And so I'm not taking it personally. I am embracing my soul's journey. And if other people don't understand it, I'm not taking it personally. This is my soul's journey. Every single individual is unique. This is why there cannot be a one-size-fits-all religious prescription, yogic posture, spirituality. That does not exist in real life and real nature, where there is rather a beauty of diversity. Every soul has its own nature. The separation of the soul has individuality. That individuality is not an illusion. That individuality of our soul is through which we experience everything in life, not an accident, not a problem, not a sign of failure. Rather than a direct one-way journey towards the moon's north node, that tends to be a common misconception. Oh, your moon's north node is in Capricorn, so you're trying to be a Capricorn. Well, not necessarily. There is always a paradox, a polarity in the moon's nodes, which requires a theme of balance. The evolutionary intention of the moon's nodes is about bridging together this balance. And if we have time for it, we're going to take a look at the 6 major polarities of this zodiacal balance and some of the themes that shows up when the moon's nodes are in those polarities. Now, importantly, the whole chart reveals the specifics. And if we have time, we're going to get into some of those specifics, what it means when specific signatures are lining up, planets aspecting the moon's nodes, so on and so forth. Okay, the moon's south node, where the moon's orbit passes the plane of the ecliptic moving south, reflects past experience, what is natal, familiar, and most identified with. Our moon's south node oftentimes reflects how we describe ourselves, and this reflects our past experiences, our past, the good, the bad, and the nutty, that which has made us who we uniquely are. Now, again, we are not limited to our past, but we are somewhat bound to it in the sense that we took some things from the past into the present. including a sense of identity, which is what we're all about. That moon's south node is going to be one of the most easily identifiable parts of what we're familiar about, what we're all about. Sun, moon, rising sign, not necessarily. But if you look at the south node of the moon, that's going to be a very integrated archetype, zodiac sign. And as we'll discuss, it's not just the moon's nodes, but also the rulers of those nodes. So we'll give some examples of this, but say your moon's south node is in Leo, okay, a very integrated Leo personality, and also we're looking to the placement of the sun in the birth chart. If someone's south node is in Leo like mine with the sun in Gemini, that is going to be an indication that the Gemini nature is very familiar to me, very effortless, very natural. Okay, so the south node and the south node ruler is going to reflect to you the most identifiable, relatable parts of a person's chart. Now, that might be useful to know if you're reading somebody's chart, right? This is going to be the part that's familiar. This is going to be the part that you relate to, not necessarily sun, moon, or rising sign. The entire chart has to be looked at as a whole to understand the specific dynamics of that soul, that personality, and their journey throughout life. Now, the moon's north node, where that moon's orbit is passing the ecliptic going north, is where we are having new incoming experiences that invite an expansion of what is known, personal identification, the future unknown, which is the soul seeking to experience through direct contact in order to integrate new experiences. So we're having direct contact with new experiences, not just daydreaming about the future, but living what is fresh and brand new, moon's north node, stepping off into the unknown. This does not necessarily come without effort, and yet the future cannot be avoided. Like it or not, the future is coming. So tick tock, we are reverberating through the moon's nodes. We have a natural comfort zone in the moon's south node. That's our ego. That's what's familiar to us. And yet it's also the talents and the traits that we're bringing in from the past. So it's not all bad. There's a wonderful gift that we're integrating into our life from our ego. But our soul's also a little bit sick of that. Been there, done that, sick of that. Let's expand into the new, the moon's north node. And yet, that future experience is mysterious, unknown. And there's a natural hesitancy to step off into the unknown. So again, this natural friction between the past and the future is the actual evolutionary mechanism through which we learn, grow, and experience life. And this is why one of those very common questions to the astrologer that oftentimes is met with, kind of a hopelessness is, when is it going to stop? When does it all stop? We've heard this for years and years. And my answer is always, it doesn't. It doesn't stop. This is our journey. As far as I know, it goes on forever. But it's not about removing the tension from our experience. It is about embracing that tension through understanding that this is an opportunity to learn and grow. Just because things aren't finished or perfect today doesn't mean that we are being punished or a failure. There is an opportunity to ceaselessly learn and grow. Because things are not already perfect today, as far as I can tell, they have the potential to always get better. That's the magic when we understand life and nature. Our whole relationship to life and nature changes. We don't wait for the end. We don't wait for the finish line. We're not waiting for ascension or enlightenment or any of these ideas that something's going to stop or some magical reward's going to drop from on high, because that really creates this tension between our ego and our soul, and that's when problems happen. The ego is created by the soul to learn and grow through. Problems happen when that ego is seen as something other than that. So by understanding the moon's nodes in your chart and another person's chart, we can approach these dynamics almost like a gardener. And it's like adding a little bit of fertilizer, a little bit of water, a little bit of sunlight. What do we need to honor our own soul's evolutionary journey? How can we approach our ego in a way that is embracing and integrating this journey rather than fighting against our own soul's deeper desires? Okay. Now we mentioned nodal rulers. Just to specify here, the ruler of the moon's south node is going to further describe the past experience, the ego, what is familiar, and the talents and traits that are brought in. The ruler of the moon's north node is going to further describe and very much specify what is that soul's desires? What do they want to grow into? Where are they learning? Where are they developing? So this is really providing a structure to the birth chart and astrological interpretation. The moon's nodes and the rulers of those nodes are going to be some of the most defined underlying structures that reveals time as it is experienced from the individual. And so this is what I suggest you experiment with and explore. Look to those moon's nodes, look to those nodal rulers, and see how much those themes jump out. If we have time, we're going to take a look at some examples of this and see how much these moon's nodal and nodal rulers themes really speak to the life of a soul. Now we're going to get into some of the specifics here, and so this is getting a little bit more technical. Again, you're free to take notes if something jumps out, or feel free to just kind of tune into the sound of my voice, and you can return to the recording at a later time if you desire. As we said, the whole picture of the moon's nodes and the whole chart really reveals this evolutionary theme. So we have to look at the chart of the whole, and we can also look... Oh, looks like my video just turned off. Okay. All right, I'm going to keep talking and play with that at the same time. Not sure why that happened. Okay.
You're back on, yeah.
Wonderful. So, planets aspecting the moon's nodes can also reveal a lot of information. If there are no planets aspecting the moon's nodes, moon's nodes just unaspected, that is a signature that this person is really learning that moon's north node. If there's no planets aspecting the moon's nodes, that person is going to be very identified with their moon's south node. And the moon's north node is going to be a little bit more where there's expansion, where there's learning, and that step off into the unknown. Now, what if we see planets in trine or sextile to the moon's nodes? This is a bit more of a harmonious signature that integrates, that says that these planets have been integrated. It is the moon and the moon's nodes that reveals the structure of identity, the ego. When planets are in trine or sextile to the moon's nodes, those planets have been integrated into the egoic structure and identity. And the specific nature of that aspect, whether it's a first quarter or a third quarter trine, etc., is going to specifically describe how that soul has integrated. For example, we see a moon south node in Leo trine to a Mars in Aries. This could be a signature that this person has integrated a sense of individuality, probably pretty confident to do their own thing and go to the beat of their own drum, because that Mars has been integrated into the moon's south node, the ego, the egoic structure. That's also something that person can be using. It's like a resource that can be tapped into. Already integrated, the trine and sextile aspect are more effortless. Now, what if we see nodal squares? This is a very specific and actually very in-depth signature. And so we're actually just going to kind of summarize what a nodal square is. But really, you can do a tremendous amount of research just on planets square the moon's nodes. As we looked at in the graphic before, when planets are square the nodes, they're further from the ecliptic, and that can be a signature of disassociation or not being integrated. And there are many, many different reasons as to why that planet is not initially integrated. It may have been a soul desire from a prior lifetime that was not actualized. And now it's coming back into this lifetime to be brought in. It could be a signature of trauma, that there was some harsh experience in early childhood, or there was a degree of force not being allowed to embody that planet, or some type of traumatic experience or event causing a disassociation from that planet. I'll give a quick personal example. My moon is square the moon's nodes. I was not allowed to emotionally express as a child. When I cried, I was met with a loud, screaming face in my face, right? So I learned to suppress my emotions. And that's the signature of a moon square her own nodes. This is a theme of needing to integrate the moon. My moon is in Taurus, so what am I learning to do throughout life? Slow down, tune into my body. My favorite muse is the sloth, okay? Similarly, any planet square to the moon's nodes is going to reveal a very important underlying evolutionary dynamic. I stress this. A planet square the moon's nodes is going to reveal a very important underlying evolutionary dynamic. Nodal squares are parts of our chart that we are ceaselessly exploring throughout our life. There's like more and more of it coming in. In the chart of a highly evolved soul, that nodal square can be a signature of what that soul is really doing in their life, in a profound way. It requires a conscious effort to integrate nodal squares. Someone just said, what about planets square Mars? Well, this is going to bring up disassociated Martian themes. Again, it's going to be hard for me not to get into a 2-hour talk on nodal squares. When a planet is disassociated, it can act wacky, it can act out of bounds. This can be anger issues and sensitivity, reactivity, but it's not that Mars is a problem. There's a need to explore that reactivity. Why are we reacting? Why are we being defensive? And then to integrate the principle of Mars is learning how to do Mars healthily, to be strong, to be in charge. Someone with Mars square the moon's nodes may not know what they desire, may have issues around sexuality or libido, and they're exploring their desires. They're exploring their libido to integrate that energy, that direction, and that confidence of Mars. I'm going to pause here and just check in with the questions because time goes out the window when I open my mouth. Okay. I use a 10-degree orb for moon's nodes. The more sensitive and evolved a soul, the wider orbs you can use. It really depends on the individual. Okay. All right, most of these look like they're personal chart examples. We may have time to get to that at the end. And absolutely, we'll talk about planets conjoining the moon's north or south node. What about the layer of house placement of the moon's north-south node? Very, very good question. The houses are very, very important. In evolutionary astrology, as was taught by Jeffrey Wolf Green, there is an archetypal correlation between zodiac signs and houses. So the first house has Aries themes. The second house has Taurus themes. And so absolutely, you're integrating both the zodiac sign and the house together is very, very much going to emphasize what is that evolutionary direction. So absolutely, the houses are not something to set to the side. Both the zodiac sign and the house is very, very, very important to understanding that evolutionary theme and direction. Good question. Now let's talk about planets conjoin the south node. When a planet is conjoined the south node, it indicates one of two, but usually both. A planet conjoined the South Node is a past theme that is being brought from the past or prior lifetimes into the present. Personally, I do not like to approach evolutionary astrology with the perspective of lifetimes or reincarnation being necessary. No, you don't have to believe in reincarnation. You don't have to believe in past lifetimes. The South Node can reflect past lifetimes, or we can say it reflects the early childhood experience. We can say that the early childhood experience reflects our past lifetimes in such a way to sort of let us begin where we last left off. So a planet conjunct the moon's South Node is something from the past being brought into the future, or it's a childhood theme archetype that's looking for a resolution. There's something that needs to be resolved by that planet conjunct the South Node. There tends to be some shadow dynamics of a planet conjoining the moon's South Node. Not necessarily, but almost always, in terms of my own observations. A planet conjoining the moon's South Node also can indicate a past gift or a talent or an understanding that is being brought into this life. So someone with moon on their South Node is bringing in an emotional sensitivity. Maybe they've got some stuff to work out with their mom. They're learning how to express their emotions in a way that can be received. Someone with Jupiter on their South Node may be really, really intuitive and bringing in these teachings from other cultures and other places. But there tends to be also things that are being resolved. Is it all our perspective and the way that we see things, or is there more to life? So again, a South Node planetary conjunction typically has themes that need to be resolved with that planet, and there also tends to be gifts, sensitivities that planet is already very identified with. You see a planet on the moon's South Node, that's going to very much describe that person, their personality, and what is familiar to him. Planets conjoined the North or South Node, very important, powerful dynamics in the chart. Planets conjoined the moon's North Node, on the other hand, are inviting the soul into what's new, holding open the doorway to the soul's evolution. If you see planets conjoined a person's North Node in their chart, you're encouraging them to embrace that planet. Oh, you've got Venus in Aquarius on the moon's North Node. Well, you can be connecting with others and sharing your ideas and using technology and collaborating in very brilliant, pioneering, and unconventional ways. Oh, you've got your moon in Leo conjoin the moon's North Node. Well, you can be sharing your personal story in a very exciting way, and you can really take center stage and act out your feelings and your emotions in a way that's inspirational, touching and uplifting the hearts of others. Chiron conjoin the moon's North Node. There's a great example. Well, this person's healing journey is inviting this person throughout their life, and maybe the medicines, the tools, the techniques that they're finding while healing their wounds is a part of what they're teaching, sharing, or disseminating with others. Maybe they go into their healing being a very important part of their life or their work or what they're all about. So planets conjoin the moon's North Node, holding open the doorway to the soul's evolution. Okay, someone's asked about ascendant conjoined North Node. Well, if that North Node's in the first house, there's an individuating, Aries. I don't know if we'll have time to get into the various zodiacal examples because of my Gemini motor mouth, but this is something that we'll certainly continue to teach. This is foundational evolutionary astrology, and if you would like to get straight to the core of evolutionary astrology as taught by Jeffrey Wolf Green, the website is schoolofevolutionaryastrology.com. On the EA message boards, there is more free EA information than anywhere else that you can get access to fairly effortlessly. Nodal rulers. What if we see the ruler of the South Node and the ruler of the North Node conjunct? Let's say the South Node's in Leo, ruled by the Sun, North Node's in Aquarius, ruled by Uranus, and we see a Sun-Uranus conjunction. This indicates that this person has already been evolving towards that North Node. There is a continuation of exploring those nodal themes, and the nodal rulers being conjunct are going to reveal where specifically that soul is continuing to evolve, learn, and grow. What if we see the ruler of the moon's north node, say the north node is in Aquarius ruled by Uranus, and Uranus is conjoined the moon's south node? This is going to indicate an evolutionary direction of needing to go back in order to evolve forward, needing to look at the past, the childhood, the formed identity, past lives, in order to understand what we're about, and then continuing to be integrating and expressing that South Node themes, but in new ways. Through exploring the past, there's something that is unlocked. There's a new perspective that allows that old to be brought forward into the new. What if we see the South Node ruler conjoin the moon's North Node? If we have time, this is true in the chart of Barack Obama, who has his moon's North Node in, or actually I can't remember. Let me pull up his chart, actually. Since I got it, might as well. And I apologize, I'm learning to be less organized, because it seems like the more organized I am, the more it interrupts the flow that cannot be organized. All right, let's see. Okay, so in Obama's chart, we see his South Node ruler conjoin the moon's North Node in Leo. Okay, so this is someone who is continuing to explore and look at the nodal theme here, right? We see Aquarius, Leo in Barack Obama's chart, and how much this reveals this personality as well as his life. His moon's South Node in Aquarius is going to be what? Someone who's related to progress, someone who is comfortable in groups, humanitarian movements, pioneering progressive, movements and whatnot. This is Aquarius. His South Node's in the first house. He's been personally identified with these progressive pioneering movements, and it's ruled by Uranus in Leo. Well, this says something about courage. Courage to be different. Courage to go to the beat of your own drum. When we're talking about the Leo-Aquarius polarity, we're talking about the courage to be a genius. Now, for those of you who remember Obama's election, he was considered an alien. People didn't believe that he was a United States citizen. Of course, he was met with so much racism, feedback, and what? He chiseled through it, to be expected, familiar, known. That South Node ruler conjoin the North Node is him continuing to evolve through that identity that has already been integrated. And that Uranus in Leo on the North Node, him using his personal expression, Leo, being a leader, Leo, taking a stance. We see his son, the ruler of his North Node, also in Leo. Someone who's coming into his individuality. But that Uranus on the North Node continuing to be the humanitarian, continuing to be the progressor. And again, using his courage to be an individual, his confidence to be the unique genius that he is, to spread his message, to be the courageous leader that he was really renowned for being, really an example of that high octave Leo, especially what we're all thinking in the United States these days. Oh man, I miss that guy. Now, where we are with time, I need to talk about transiting moon quickly before we get into more examples and I, go off the deep end once again. The transiting moon we can tune into now. The transiting moon reveals the experience of the present moment at any point in time. And that transiting moon goes full 360 degrees around the whole zodiac, forms every single aspect to every single planet in our chart. By tuning into the personal experience of the moon and objectively comparing the transits of the moon to our own birth chart, we can understand how our personal experience in the present moment is reflecting our soul's evolutionary journey and themes. Folks, this is profound. Astrology is not just pop astrology or talking about personality traits. It is a healing modality that we can use and harness as a technology to grow and evolve in potential. Tuning into the moon, contrasting and comparing the moon to your own chart is a way to quicken your own evolution through understanding who you are, what your life is about, what the themes you're experiencing are all about, and not only that, when you'll experience those themes and why you'll experience those themes. When you have something happen to you as an astrologer, you pull out your chart and you understand why. Truly. Since I have learned evolutionary astrology, there is no more, gee, that really sucks that I have this redundant experience that keeps happening. I have my nodes on the Leo-Aquarius axis the way we saw with Obama. Have I experienced isolation, alienation, being on the outside of the group rather than a part of the group? I wonder why I have this redundant theme and experience that keeps replaying throughout my life. Well, maybe it's not a punishment. Maybe it's not a sign of failure. Maybe it's an opportunity for me to learn and grow through my personal experience. It's not an accident. Our ego is not a problem. The feedback from our ego, the feedback of that moon, I don't feel safe. I don't feel heard. I don't feel recognized enough. Is that what we're saying? Oh, shut up, ego. You sure are causing me pain. No, there are reasons we have these feelings and this emotional feedback, and it tells us something about ourselves. Now, we're not just the ego. We're also the inner mother saying it's okay. It's okay you have that feeling. It's just a part of your life. It's just a passing season. It's just a passing phase. And so that higher self does come in and doesn't take things overly personally, doesn't get swept away by our personal experiences. That's the balance here. We're using the transiting moon contrasted with the objectivity of astrology. And by comparing our subjective inner emotional experience with the very, very cosmic vantage point of astrology. That's what gives us this perspective. We're not throwing away the ego, but we're taking it a little bit more with a grain of salt. And that allows us to approach that ego, to use those dynamics in a way that is in service to our own learning and growth. Every single month, the transiting moon will conjoin your own natal moon south node. And every month, you will have the opportunity to live your past experiences. Every time the moon conjoins your south node, you are experiencing and living past dynamics. Every time. Every time any transiting planet, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, conjoins your moon south node, that planet is going to be bringing up past experience. Anytime the transiting moons conjoins our moon's north node, we have the opportunity to experience something new and different. We are experiencing some of what our soul wants to learn, grow, and experience. That doesn't mean the moon conjoins our moon's north node and, wonderful things fall from the sky, and Santa Claus drops off a bunch of presents underneath our Christmas tree. It means, oh, wow, these dynamics and experiences that I'm having right now are a part of my soul's desires in terms of what I'm learning, what I'm growing. Maybe we feel this is a little unfamiliar, or this is different, or this is unnatural, or maybe we're really excited about this. This is new. This is what I want to be doing. And this is reflected in the transiting moon's nodes. If you have a planet square the moon's nodes, again, this reveals a very important, critical, underlying evolutionary theme. A planet square the moon's nodes is seeking integration and resolution. Every single time the transiting moon conjoins a planet square to the moon's nodes is an opportunity to explore that dynamic. What was that disassociation? What is the confusion around this planetary archetype? How are we integrating this planetary archetype? Any planet square to the moon's nodes via transit, it's an opportunity to explore and integrate that planet. Now is the time. Anytime the moon is transiting a planet square your moon's nodes, now is the time to be exploring that nodal square theme. Now is the time to be consciously integrating that planet square to the moon's nodes. And you will find that the themes, the tensions, the struggles comes up during this time. I have 2 planetary squares, Moon in Taurus and Pluto in Scorpio. And so every single time the moon conjoins that fixed cross in my chart, I experience the evolutionary tension in my soul. And it's not always easy. It can be very challenged. I want Taurus and Scorpio and Leo and Aquarius. How do we do this when there's this tremendous friction? And there is an opportunity to explore this friction, to discover the creative solutions, to integrate that moon in Taurus, to integrate that Pluto in Scorpio. Transiting planets conjoin the moon's south node, bring up past dynamics. Transiting planets conjoin the moon's north node, are holding open the doorway for the soul's evolution. Transiting moon's nodes. We just had the node shift from Cancer into Gemini, Sagittarius. Transiting north node conjoin a planet in your chart. Now's the time. The current evolutionary dynamic is leading you into that planet in your chart. Now's the time to get into that planet that the transiting moon's north node is conjoined. Now's the time to actualize that planet to its greatest potential. Transiting moon's south node, reliving past dynamics. Transiting moon's south node conjoins a particular planet. We're seeing how we experienced that planet in the past. I just had the transiting moon's south node conjoin my Uranus in the 7th house. And I have been reliving a theme of isolation, abandonment, as well as trauma. And how, when I've experienced isolation, abandonment, or trauma, I have handled that through disassociation. And so the moon's south node is this reliving via the transiting moon's south node. And by understanding, these are past themes coming into the present, that allows us to understand, take it less with a grain of salt. Maybe it's not exactly the same as it was the last time, but there is an experience like it's the same it was the last time, because there's this theme of necessary reliving. The moon's nodes across the board in all branches of astrology reveals this critical dynamic and direction. This reveals our evolutionary journey as well as our egoic structure, what is most familiar to us. The moon is something that we can tune into. It is not distant. It is the most personally relatable part of our life and our chart. And by using the moon, by getting into our personal feelings and experiences, we actually understand and quicken our own evolutionary journey. How many of you have heard about the nature of the moon in this way? That the moon is a power to evolve through personal experience. This is the beauty of evolutionary astrology, which is not a man-made system, but comes directly from nature. And by studying nature or astrology objectively, our whole approach to life changes. Now, I'm not sure how much time I have left because I'm just so bad with numbers and timing and all that. So
Like 15 minutes.
15 minutes. Thank you, America. That's perfect. So I'm going to go through these questions that I have here. And if we have time, I'll also give some examples of nodal polarities, because we will not have time to look at chart examples. When the moon's nodes are at 0 degrees of any sign, that is an indication of completion. The moon's nodes actually move retrograde, that is clockwise, whereas the zodiac and the planets move counterclockwise. And so when the moon's nodes are at 0 degrees, that actually indicates a culmination and a completion of that polarity. That soul has been evolving along that polarity, and there is a degree of completing, mastery, and transitioning into the next nodal polarity. If we saw a moon's nodal polarity at 29 degrees, that would indicate that that evolutionary polarity and direction is being freshly initiated, just being explored by the soul.
Tim, sorry, you have half an hour.
Half an hour. Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Sorry,
Excellent.
Right.
No problem. Even better. Even better. Okay, so I'm skimming through these questions. Most of these, it looks like we've answered already, so that's a good sign. And please don't hesitate to ask questions. There's no such thing as a wrong question. And chances are, if you have a question, someone else will have that question as well. I'm not sure I understand the question about nodal squares, not by sign, by orb. Okay, so absolutely you can use out of sign aspects, okay? I'm trying to, explain this in such a way, it's a little hard without looking at a chart, but 10-degree orb is a 10-degree orb, okay? Let me think of an example here. If we see the moon at 29 degrees Leo square the sun at 3 degrees Gemini, that's still a square, even though it's an out of sign square. Same with planets squaring the moon's nodes, okay? Moon's nodes may be in the Sagittarius Gemini polarity, but the moon in Leo can still be square to those nodes if it's within a 10-degree orb. Okay, are signs more important than house placement? I personally don't think you can distinguish the two. When you're looking at a natal chart, there are these different wheels. There's the wheel of the zodiac. There's the wheel of the houses. There's the planetary aspects. These different layers and dimensions go together. There's really a merging of archetypes between sign and house to really specify the nature of any planet, any moon's nodal position. Like if you see someone's south node in the 3rd house, Gemini, they're gonna have Gemini nature, Gemini personality. Moon south node in the 8th house, Scorpio. They're gonna have Scorpio nature. They're gonna be more secret or behind the scenes or sensitive or in tune. There is an archetypal association between the 12 zodiac signs and the 12 houses. Different astrologers have different approaches. My approach is I don't prefer to distinguish the two by saying, oh, houses just means that and zodiac signs just mean that. Yeah, the houses are more personal, more individual. For example, you'll see Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto will be in the same sign for many millions of souls, right? Pluto remains in one sign for 10 to 20 years. So you look to the house position of Pluto in particular, it's going to reveal the individual nature of how that Pluto is in the life of the individual. Many millions of souls have Pluto in Scorpio just like I do. But I have Pluto in Scorpio in the 5th house square the moon's nodes. That's my Pluto. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. And if it doesn't, feel free to ask another question and clarify. Do aspects to the nodes also have to do with progressions? No. Progressions are a time tracking technique, which means the chart can change. Something that was square to the nodes can no longer be square to the nodes in transit or progression. But can you look to planets square the nodes in progressions or transits? Absolutely. The dynamic does not change, whether it be a progress chart, transit chart. These are the structures of our solar system. So nodal axis on the angles are just really going to bring up those angular themes. If we see someone's moon south node conjunct the midheaven, here is, oh, I forgot to grab his chart. I wanted to look at Putin has a Pluto south node conjunction in Leo on his midheaven. And it says a hell of a lot about who Putin is. I'll just cut to the chase. That signature in the life of Putin, moon south node in Leo, conjunct Pluto on the midheaven, not only a dictator, someone who's very familiar. Probably not the first time this person's been an emperor, right? So he's just doing what he's already a master of, very familiar with, easy for a very rare and unique soul like Putin. Okay, so the point is moon south node conjunct midheaven is what? Past experience and identification, midheaven out there in the world, out in society. There's going to be a theme of societal deconditioning, more than likely, with the south node conjunct midheaven. Maybe early childhood experiences of having a fair amount of pressure put on one's shoulders. And again, look at the archetypal association. Midheaven is what? The 10th house, Capricorn, Saturn. So societal pressure. Be this person in order to meet other people's expectations. And then the north node would be conjunct the IC, the most personal, emotional, family, home. Learning how to tune in one's personal emotional feedback, learning how to honor one's emotional desires and needs rather than societal pressures. What if the south node's conjunct the IC? Someone who's very sensitive, maybe very close to their family, very close to their home, very comfortable in their own immediate environment, and learning how to go out there in the world. North node conjunct the midheaven is a signature of someone who has something to do out there. And north node conjunct the midheaven would reveal an evolutionary dynamic for this person to initiate themselves into their own authority. We're going to go much more in depth in my presentation on Pluto tomorrow on how to approach the chart to give feedback to a person that helps that person to change. And that is not necessarily just doing the astrological lingo. Oh, north node in the 10th house, you are coming into societal journey. Yeah, we can do that. That's very helpful, very true information. What I like to say when someone's north node is conjunct the midheaven is, well, this is a soul who is learning to go out there in the world, come into their power, go into society, come into their own authority. And so what I will say to counsel a person with that nodal signature is you have to initiate yourself into your own authority. Okay? Other people are not going to do this for the person with the moon's north node conjunct the midheaven. It's their soul's desire to come into their authority. So that's not going to be served to them on a silver platter. That's the north node. So a common experience with the person's south node in the 4th house is my family doesn't want me to do what I want to do. And that's really going to challenge this person because they're caring. They're devoted to their family. They're emotionally sensitive. And they are learning to initiate themselves into their own authority. North node conjunct the MC, midheaven. I will say to a person with their north node conjunct midheaven, maybe, and I look for the specifics, we'll say it's a south node in the 4th house, Gemini. And we'll say, other people are going to come up to you and they're going to say, do you really want to do that? I don't know. Doesn't really seem to make sense. I don't know. And that's going to be the opportunity for that person to self-initiate. Yes, this is who I am. Yes, this is what I'm doing out there in the world. If you like it, you can join me or you can leave it. Okay, we see similar themes, maybe in North Node in the 8th house, North Node Scorpio, someone coming into their power, initiating themselves into their own power. Now, what if we see the moon's North Node in the 2nd house or in Taurus? This is someone who's pulling themselves out of the frying pan as Scorpio, learning to slow down, create paradise, come into the easy, the simple. Someone with their South Node in Taurus or South Node in the 2nd house is learning, let's explore the unknown. Let's explore our fears. Taurus can be these insecurities. Oh, I'll create a fortress around myself because the world is really scary out there. Moon, South Node, and Taurus are in the second house. And then we're counseling this person. Well, it's safe to explore your fears. What are those phobias? What are those insecurities? North Node in the 8th house is going into the underworld, going into the shadow in order to grow, become empowered. How do we overcome our fears? North Node in the 8th house, North Node Scorpio, by safely creating environments to face those fears. I have my own North Node in the 8th house. I used to be afraid of the dark. I used to have a nightlight on. I used to really hate campouts when the sun went down, because all the shadows came out, and my very creative imagination would make all sorts of scary things out of those shadows. So what did I have to do? I had to spend time in the dark. I would go off into the woods by myself alone at night and get lost. And that's how I overcame those fears. So North Node Taurus, pulling ourselves out of the frying pan of Scorpio, slowing down, coming into our bodies, our senses, more snacks, more naps, more orgasms. North Node in the 8th house, we're digging beneath the surface. North Node in Scorpio, we're exploring for that treasure, those gems, buried in the unconscious. We explore our fears and insecurities in order to overcome them. We explore our unconscious dynamics to not be controlled by them. Pluto, Scorpio, the 8th house are these unconscious dynamics that push and pull us in different ways, like a marionette pushed and pulled on strings. When we explore Pluto tomorrow, we will in particular be exploring the how and the approach to make this shadow work, exploring the unconscious, less scary, more feasible, something more approachable. Okay. Again, if there are no aspects to the nodes, this indicates the North Node is being actualized for the first time by this soul. North Node's going to be new, fresh, really indication to get into that moon's North Node if there are no planetary aspects to the nodes, which is actually quite rare. I was speaking about moons on the angles. We were talking about IC, midheaven. What if we see moon's nodes on the ascendant-descendant angle? Well, we're going to see someone who is learning and growing and evolving through a tension and an exploration between self and other. Someone's moon south node in the 7th house or in Libra going to have much more of a natural propensity to be oriented towards others. Let me know what I like is the shadow of Libra. North Node Aries or in the 1st house is someone who's learning to individuate, be themselves, be instinctual, know their own desires, go to the beat of their own drum. South Node in Aries, South Node in the 1st house, North Node in 7th, North Node in Libra. Soul's learning to share, learning to collaborate, learning to listen, learning to be receptive. But regardless, moon's nodes on the polarity of the ascendant-descendant 1st, 7th house, house of individuality, house of relationships, the themes between self and other is what is really being explored. Okay. I'm going to... Intercepted houses can mean either houses, intercepted signs are when a sign is completely contained within a house, therefore that sign does not rule a house. An intercepted sign can either be very well integrated or a polarity that needs integration. And one of the ways to determine if that is a polarity that needs integration or is already very well integrated is by looking at those intercepted signs and the rulers of those signs. If we see Leo Aquarius intercepted and a very, very strong sun and a very, very strong Aquarius, that is more than likely an integrated Leo Aquarius polarity. If we see an unaspected sun or Aquarius and there is an intercepted Leo Aquarius polarity, that's a signature that the Leo Aquarius polarity needs to be integrated. What if sign of north node and house placement is in polarity? Okay, so moon's north node in Libra in the first house. There's going to be a theme of balance. It's not uncommon where we see signs in opposite houses where the ascendant is in Libra. This is a signature of balance, learning to harmonize opposite archetypes, and that theme of balancing the moon's nodes will therefore be more emphasized if we see signs in houses in opposite polarity. Are the interpretations of aspects to the nodes in a natal chart apply to the transiting nodes? You can look to the transiting moon's nodes. The moon's north node just entered Gemini. Where is Mercury in your natal chart? Wherever Mercury is in your natal chart, that can be a fair degree of what you're learning, what you're exploring, and where you can be growing this next 18 months. We just came out of a period where the moon's north node has been in Cancer. So wherever the moon is in your chart, hopefully you're a little bit more understanding of your own natal moon, and hopefully that moon has become a little bit more integrated. The transiting moon's nodes reveals the evolutionary intention of the present moment. And yes, you can look to those transiting nodal rulers in your own chart to get a sense of how you can be embracing these collective evolutionary intentions in your own way, right? Not everybody processes their moon in the same way. Not everybody processes emotions and feelings in the same way. One of the most great and beautiful gifts that astrology can bestow to a person. Certainly, this is something I hold in my heart. I'm very touched and honored to have the opportunity to experience and witness this beauty, that every single individual is themselves, that every single soul is unique, and there is no right or wrong way to therefore do anything. One of my greatest gripes, for those of you who are familiar with me and my work, is the contrast between popular spiritual beliefs versus nature and reality. And you can use the astrology to reflect back what is real in nature versus popular beliefs, assumptions, or teachings that are oftentimes way too one size fits all. The one size fits all does not exist in reality or nature. The more you study and practice astrology, you will recognize that there is a beauty in every single soul. Every single soul has their own way of communicating, relating, emotionally processing. Every single soul has their own way of relating spiritually. There is no correct yogic system or spiritual belief system or deity or practice. As soon as we say, this is the belief system, this is the practice, this is what is right versus what is so wrong, in that obviously one-size-fits-all type of way, we end up causing harm to the full diversity and expression of life itself. Something that I like to say is that I love atheists. I love atheists. To me, atheism is one of the most beautiful celebrations of God that there is. And I don't hear too many people circulating that perspective. One of my favorite clients are atheist skeptics who don't believe in astrology. Favorite clients. Let's see if we can get astrology to work for those folks. That is what astrology can do. Astrology requires no belief. You don't have to believe in reincarnation for evolutionary astrology to be totally useful and applicable to helping any person in their life. Practically. This is a healing service. I actually don't know anything about the part of fortune. The parts come from Arabic astrology, and I would love to learn more about it. Don't know anything about it. Yeah. So someone was saying, I've got Pluto conjunct the south node. So that Pluto, by placement, aspects to other planets, it's going to be a very important emphasis, really exploring that Pluto, exploring that south node, what you're bringing in from that Pluto, how you're relating to that Pluto, that house, that south node, that sign. And that north node is going to indicate how all of that is being brought into the future, how all of that is evolving. Really, really important point. Glad that this is coming up. In evolutionary astrology, as taught by Jeffrey Green, we know that there's a Pluto polarity point. And actually, there's a polarity point to every planet because not just the moon's nodes, our whole creation is founded upon duality. Union and separation creates our entire experience of life. This is why, personally, we cannot demonize separation. It generates our whole experience. The ego is not an illusion. It is a vehicle. It serves a function. It has a use. Through this duality, we're learning and growing through polarity. Everything is on a spectrum between polarity. Everything. In fact, hot and cold aren't actually separate. They are different temperatures on the same pole. Hot, cold. This is reality. So the 12 zodiac signs can actually be reduced to 6 polarities. The high octave of any sign is always found through an integration of polarity. Okay, low octave Mars, low octave Aries is what? Arrogant, selfish. I do what I want instinctively. I don't care what other people want. Right? Shadow Aries. What's the high octave Aries or Mars? I defend others. I am a knight in shining armor. I am a warrior. I am an initiator to open doorways for others, right? High octave Mars is like something scary is at the door, and Aries says, I'll go to the door. We'll see what's there. That is a balance of Aries and Libra, justice, right? Reciprocation, tuning into the other. So the high octave of any sign is always in some type of balance with the other sign. That doesn't mean that Aries becomes Libra. It doesn't mean that Gemini becomes Sagittarius. But there is an openness there that allows for the healthy expression of any sign. In evolutionary astrology, the Pluto polarity point reveals one of those most underlying directions of evolution throughout life. There is an exception to this rule when the North node is conjoined Pluto. The moon's north node always reveals the soul's evolutionary forward and direction. Therefore, Pluto conjoined the moon's north node negates that rule of the Pluto polarity point. Rather, we're getting into that Pluto. A north node Pluto conjunction is a symbol that many lifetimes of soul experience has been gathered. Pluto, that person is now identifying with. Moon's nodes, egoic structure. The moon's north node is exploring their soul's unconscious past experience because there is value, there's information, there's skills in that unconscious soul experience. North node Pluto can therefore be a signature of there's mastery going on in the house, in the sign of that north node Pluto conjunction. Awesome. Difference between moon personality and the south node. Good question. So the south node is more subconscious. Okay, a little bit deeper. The moon is also subconscious. I mean, it's feelings, not totally unconscious, but in between, Sometimes we're feeling a certain way before we recognize that we are. So that is the moon. Okay, the moon is like our personal point of self-reference, how we feel, how we process our comfort zone. Okay, the moon's south node specifically describes the greater soul's evolutionary journey. Okay, the moon's south node is that egoic structure that has been constructed through lifetimes. The moon's south node will therefore always be relatable, recognizable, identifiable to the person. Not necessarily the moon so much. What if the person's north node is in Cancer? They may be really more getting into that moon, more exploring what that is. And so the south node is that egoic structure. past experiences, past talents and traits brought into the present life, whereas the moon is more how we are experiencing in the present, how we are processing emotions, what that personal self-reference point is. A moon in Gemini has a much more analytical, objective way of processing and relating to emotions. Moon in any air sign is this way, okay? But the moon's south node is specifically relating to the soul's evolutionary journey, past experiences, what's familiar and what's being brought in from past lifetimes. It's a good question. Some of these I'm not sure. If the current transit is reversal of our natal nodes, I'm not sure. Nodal return happens 18 years. Every 18 years, when we have our moon's nodal return, it is an opportunity to align with our soul's evolutionary intentions. Think about how you were at age 18. At age 18, can you think of any experiences that you were having that reflected some of the themes of your soul's journey? At 18 years, this tends to be when we're really, really excited to be individuating, breaking from home, breaking from expectation, finding our own. And I find that that is an example of this nodal return. So every time we have a moon's nodal return, there is an opportunity to receive an update from our soul. We are getting an update of our evolutionary intentions and directions, and it is a seed sowing. There's always a completing of one cycle, a beginning of another cycle, whenever we see a moon's nodal cycle complete and begin. What about when we have a nodal opposition? Transiting moon's north node conjunct our own natal moon's south node. This means we are going into the past. There is a necessary evolutionary intention to self-reflect. Past themes are being brought into the present to recognize what is that egoic structure that has formed in the past. The transiting moon's north node conjunct our natal south node is going to bring us into that deeper story of our egoic structure. Whenever the moon's nodes are aligned with the nodal return or nodal opposition, those nodal themes are going to be very, very much up on the forefront. It's a time of very clearly understanding what are the themes of this lifetime. Typically, the transiting moon's south node conjunct the transiting moon's north node conjunct the south node can bring up some of those challenges. What needs to be resolved, as well as talents and traits brought in or already integrated, and really recognizing what those talents and traits are. How do we look to the rulers of the moon's nodes? Thank you for asking this question, because I, as usual, went completely out of bounds. Oops, that's not going to work. With my own structure here. So I have a graphic here. And this graphic is showing planetary rulerships. Okay? You can also Google planetary rulerships. You'll probably get modern and traditional. We use modern rulerships in evolutionary astrology. Okay? So every single zodiac sign has associated to it a ruling planet. In modern planetary rulerships, the planet Mercury and Venus rule two signs. These are the two dualistic planets in our solar system. So, if you see a moon's north node in Aries, you also want to look to Mars. If you see a moon's north node in Cancer, you also want to look to the moon. Okay? If the nodes move into a house with no planets, do you use the qualities of that house for more guidance? Absolutely. Even if there's no planet in a sign or a house, that sign and house where the transiting moon's nodes are, that's where the current evolutionary exploration is. Transiting Moon's North Node is in an empty 7th house. There's still going to be a dynamic between self and other, and there is an exploration of relationship going on. How can we share ourselves with others? How can we collaborate? How can we achieve a balance and a harmony, regardless of whether that house is full of planets or empty? Transiting Moon's nodes always reflect the current evolutionary dynamics. Okay, we went over sextile and trines to the Moon's nodes. If your North Node is trine the transiting North Node, would this be a great time for expansion? Yes. Transiting Moon's nodes can form aspect to your natal Moon's nodes, and that's going to reveal how there is a connection between the current evolutionary intentions and the evolutionary intentions of your own life. We see the transiting Moon's North Node in Aries trine to somebody's North Node in Leo. There is a theme of individualization and how that collective dynamic revealed by the transiting Moon's North Node by house, sign, planetary aspect can also be integrated into the creative individualization and the growing of confidence that is a theme in the chart of the individual. The 6 major polarities are the 12 zodiac signs in half. Okay, Aries, Libra, 1 polarity. Taurus, Scorpio. I'll pull up the graphic. I don't know if we'll have time for this, but I'll pull up my pretty graphics at least. Can't just create these pretty graphics if I'm not going to show them. So, first polarity, Aries, Libra. Self-other, self-other. Individual desires versus receptivity, listening, collaboration, harmonizing with others. Libra wants to share values. Aries wants to initiate and discover new values. Taurus, Scorpio. Taurus, again, stability, integration. Here we see the polarity of evolution itself. Pluto, the ruler of Scorpio, is the force of evolution. We go through lifetimes where we are evolving more intensely. We'll talk about this in the Pluto talk. If you see someone's Pluto aspecting every planet in their chart, this is a signature. This soul is choosing to evolve very quickly and intensely throughout life. Taurus is the slowness, the space, and the luxury to slow down and integrate the changes that have already happened. So Taurus is integration, coming into the body, the senses, the immediate environment, creature comforts, senses, slowing down, easy, simple. The Buddha becoming enlightened because a little girl brings him a bowl of rice. He comforts his stomach, his body, his senses, raises the level of his consciousness, and he achieves enlightenment. Taurus medicine. Scorpio is let's go beyond our limitations. Let's break out of the known. Let's explore the mystery, explore the depth. What is death? What is sexuality? What is taboo? What's not being explored or talked about by others? What's getting swept underneath the rug? Scorpio is also intimacy, whereas Taurus is spaciousness. We think of green open pastures with Taurus, whereas Scorpio is more of this claustrophobic fusion reactor of change, transformation, as well as emotional intimacy. It is through our relationships that we oftentimes interact with that black hole of intensity, Scorpio. Gemini, left brain, logical, chunking, dissecting our immediate environment into bits and pieces of information. That way we can understand our immediate environment. We can use language. We can use communication to talk about my arm, my hand, the microphone, the computer, and we understand what this means. So Gemini is left brain, logical thinking, if-then statements. Gemini is the eternal student asking questions. Gemini looks at one thing from innumerable different angles, innumerable different facets. We're all learning with the transiting Moon's North Node in Gemini these next 18 months to use our mind to understand discernment, to understand diversity, to understand that these one-size-fits-all prescriptions do not really work in reality, particularly when we're dealing with the chaos of mass man. So many different people with so many different ideas, so many different past experiences, and it is as if every person speaks their own language. We're certainly going to be learning how can we function with that North Node in Gemini theme this next year and a half. Sagittarius is what takes all that bits and pieces of information and has an underlying thread of meaning. This is what bridges together all of these different bits and pieces. Sagittarius is the right brain, the creative, intuitive faculty. That's much more like looking at one thing as if it were a topographical map, top of the mountain perspective. Okay, what is that meaning of life again? Sagittarius is philosophy, it's purpose. It's also this expanding principle, taking our awareness and then expanding through exploration, through opening up. Okay, Capricorn, physical security, out there in the world. We just came out of a nodal polarity in the Cancer Capricorn polarity. Looking out at the world, seeing coronavirus, this is the theme. Okay? Physical security, what are we doing for our jobs? How are we relating to society? What is that physical structure versus emotional security? The moon, our ego, our inner sense of safety, our inner emotional experience, our own processing of our feelings. So to be able to create inner security, emotional support, emotional intelligence is Cancer. And it is through this polarity, by the way, that we see the structure, Capricorn, Saturn, of the egoic identity. And I believe in traditional astrology, the moon's nodes also have a loose correlation to the Cancer Capricorn polarity. Moon south node's the past, what's familiar to us, self-reflection. The north node, what we are growing into through effort. Okay? Leo, individuality, self-expression, spontaneity, the confidence to be ourself. Leo is going to the beat of his own drum, the opera singer, ooh, letting the cat out of the bag. Leo, like the Hollywood star, can be followed around by paparazzi, groups of other people, feedback, scrutiny, and not even care. They're a Hollywood star. They've got their sunglasses on. They go about their day as if nobody's there. That's the courage, the confidence of high octave Leo. Leo is that every individual plays their own instrument in the overall symphony. Leo is our sun. Aquarius is the universe. Aquarius says, hey, sun, you're not the only star in the universe. You're not the only instrument player here. There is a divine symphony. Aquarius is the interconnection with groups, movements. Aquarius can be like the hive mind. We're all on the same dimension. We're all on the same page. Aquarius is also pioneering breakthrough, uniqueness, avant-garde, unconventional, rule-breaking, Promethean, pioneering genius. Aquarius is the future. This polarity has very much to do with individualization. Again, it takes courage to be a genius. It takes confidence to go against the grain of the hive mind. And it also takes an open heart to be receptive to the whole, not just bombastically being ourselves, but being considerate of the full spectrum diversity of all other life in our reality. That's Aquarius. And finally, Pisces, Virgo. Okay, Pisces, otherworldly, spiritual sensitivity, the imagination and creativity, our dreams, our goals, our ideals, and our longings. Virgo, practical, in our body, what's right in front of us, scheduling, analyzing, breaking apart our life into the mundane. Virgo is mundane life experience. I am knitting, I am growing food, I am paying the bills, I'm washing my hands. Pisces, ethereal experience. We are all one, we are all love, we are all interconnected to this mystical divine dance. Okay, Pisces is learning to let go. North Node and Pisces, we're tuning into that spiritual divine dance. We're learning to develop faith and trust in the bigger picture, the mystery of life, and we're learning to trust that mystery. North Node and Virgo, we're learning to get our feet on the ground. Okay, Virgo, boundaries. Pisces, boundarylessness. Okay, Moon's nodes on the 12th, 6th, Pisces, Virgo polarity is learning filtration system. When to be open, when to be closed. When to be focused, when to be flowing. Okay, So obviously that was a super, super fast review of the polarities, but I did want to show my pretty pictures, and I'm glad we did have a chance to at least, breeze through some of these polarities here. Okay, for those who would like to learn more, I have a moon workshop on my website, rosalilahealing.com, and I have a polarity workshop as well that goes much, much more in depth into these polarities. I know I have just a few more minutes left, and so I've got quite a few unanswered questions. I'm going to breeze through and see if any jump out that I feel will be relevant. Can you relate the moon to current events, like the conference and your full moon now? The full moon in Scorpio for me tends to conjoin my skipped step Pluto. Opposite to my moon in Taurus, it's not always a comfortable full moon for myself, personally. So I would say this full moon plays, out differently for every single person, depending on who you are, your own chart, your own propensities towards Scorpio or not. I just wrote in my website there for whoever is interested. So it's kind of hard to answer. However, a full moon in Scorpio, and this isn't a painfully aspected full moon, fortunately. It's actually a pretty nice full moon in Scorpio. It tends to bring up Scorpio, the unconscious. Buried, suppressed emotions can become volcanically released, or we can really feel into the deeper tension of the soul. Full moon in Scorpio can illuminate intimacy dynamics. It could be a very wonderful time of experiencing potent intimacy, really feeling that bond, feeling that connection, and can also be a friction. Classic experience of a full moon in Scorpio for myself personally is I am in a retreat, and everybody's coming together and doing a dinner, and everybody's holding hands, and everybody's like doing some type of spiritual prayer mantra, and I just feel so claustrophobic, and I just really want to get out of there. That's my own personal experience with the Scorpio full moon. Not always, but I've had a few of those Scorpio full moons. Anyways, I don't want to go off on a tangent. I think that we're reaching the end here, yes?
Whenever you're ready.
Okie dokie. I'm just scrolling through to see if there's any last final meaningful questions. And I'm sorry I didn't have time to answer everybody's. Feel free to go to our forum and post your questions to the forum. I'm scrolling through most of these, look to be very specific questions in regards to the sequence with Moon's nodes. So I'll wrap it up. Thank you for the opportunity to share. And again, regardless of whether you are brand new to astrology, test it out. Get your moon app on your phone. Start tracking the transiting moon, where that moon is, what sign it's in, is going to be reflecting back our personal experience of the present moment. And start to track that moon as it is compared to planets in your chart. Look when that moon conjoins your south node, north node, important planets or aspects in your chart, because every month we have the opportunity, by tuning into our personal feeling-based experience, to have our soul's evolutionary journey reflected back to us. And the real gift of astrology is in seeing this, to have this objective clarification and reaffirmation. We know where we are. We know what we are experiencing and how it can be connected to our own soul's unfolding. So thank you very, very much for the opportunity to share. Again, it is a tremendous honor to have come in contact with this wisdom and these tools myself. So thank you. This is a part of my own journey and my own healing, and wishing you all the best. Please let me know if you have any questions, or if you make any brilliant discoveries with the transiting moon or looking at these dynamics. Feel free to post on our Facebook group or in our online forum with any follow-up questions. Thank you so much. Take care.